Guten Tag, YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Ardwulf Presents. I am Ardwulf, and this is Star Trek Online. In this video, I am going to show you the Star Trek Online tutorial. So this actually is probably going to be one of the longer videos in the Star Trek Online series that I'm doing. You can choose, once you have gone through this tutorial once, you can choose to skip it. They go right to the end, which I kind of recommend you do. It's a little bit time-consuming. If you skip it, you'll basically walk out with all the stuff you would have gotten in the tutorial. But the tutorial is relatively instructive, and it's a complicated enough game that you probably should go through it and pay attention to it the first time. So, we pretty much just follow the instructions up here in the task tracker. In this case, we move around. We can move around by clicking on WASD or by pointing the camera with the left mouse button and steering with the right mouse button. This works exactly like it does in pretty much every other Western MMO. These guys right here are guys with quest updates with these eyes floating above their heads. So when you approach them, you'll get one of these pop-ups. You can either click on it or you can press F. There's a very interesting control scheme that I will show you later in the tutorial. The Borg are attacking and Captain Taggart needs all hands to battle stations. I need you to get to the bridge to help me coordinate our effort. Captain blah blah blah. Okay, so we need to leave engineering. And it's pretty linear here. On the map, you'll see that this orange circle is basically where our current objective lies. So we leave engineering, and we need to take the turbo lift to the bridge. And you can actually, if you so choose, you press M to bring up the map, which we just did. You can actually explore around in here if you don't want to immediately run to the bridge. This, for example, I think is supposed to be the sick bay. I think this guy may have used to be, he may, in a previous incarnation of the tutorial, may have done something important, but he doesn't anymore. This tutorial is different than it used to be. And there's these other side doors you can go poke around in there too if you want. But beyond telling you that you can do so, I'm not going to bother in this case. Okay, so I have to take the turbo lift to the bridge. Loading screen. I did, by the way, skip the tutorial's opening cinematic, which does have narration by Leonard Nimoy, which is nice, but I've seen it more times than I need to, and the game is free, so if you really want to see it, go check it out on your own. So the captain tells us that the Borg are attacking Vega Colony. Our orders are to join the fleet that was fighting the Borg, but we may be too late. And I need to use one of the consoles to hail the USS Kittimer, which is supposed to be coordinating the defense. Okay, now here's the main view screen, which is, I believe, in this particular mission, an undynamic screen. This flashing arrow is not something you normally see over like quest objectives that you need to interact with, but it's here in this case. So again, we approach it, we hit F to interact. And apparently I wasn't quite close enough the first couple times. So we're getting a response. The signal's not coming from Kittimer's bridge. Continue.
This is the emergency medical hologram aboard the USS Kittimer. I am requesting assistance.
And of course, that is the voice of Zachary Quinto, who plays Spock in the J.J. Abrams-produced Star Trek movies. So the Kittimer's being overwhelmed.
I've lost contact with the bridge.
Lost contact with Kittimer's bridge. Must send help immediately. Okay, so we're ready for a mission. Return to the turbo lift and take it down to the transporter room. Let's go there. By the way, while I'm walking, I'll show you in a minute here. You do have the ability to sprint. Okay, so we need to talk to the transporter chief. So while I'm moving, I can hold the shift button down to sprint, and I do have a limited endurance bar to do that. So we go here, and we beam to the USS Kittimer, and we press F to do that. It's just a standard interaction. This is what we would call the ground game once we get farther into this, and you will definitely start to see, even in the context of this tutorial, you will start to see the difference between the two sides of Star Trek Online. Okay, don't really need to see that extra little cinematic. It's actually kind of long. And by long, I mean it might be like 20 seconds. Here's the emergency medical hologram.
Use your tricorder to scan.
And again, you can keep paying attention to the objective tracker over here on the right-hand side. So we need to scan an injured crewman and then report back to the emergency medical hologram. Would have been cooler had they gotten Robert Picardo, who played the emergency medical hologram on Voyager, the pretty much only cool character on Voyager, to do the voice.
If you work, Lieutenant Thelis, I have 75 million gigs.
Okay, so we need to find Lieutenant Thelis, and if we're confused about what's where, we can of course pull up the map, and here's, you'll see that here's where our objective is.
There is an 88.47% chance that you will need my help.
So, the person I need to talk to is this person. And we can again tell because of the big bouncing eye. So we need to help the engineer deal with the Borg, use the console by the force field to store the Borg patterns. This is something that's come up in the show many times. So we'll do that. This is of course going to store the transporter patterns of the Borg. And now I go through the door and use the consoles by the hull breach, which presumably is this door right here. And of course you got tutorial hints over here, which if you've ever played an MMO, maybe until you get to the space game, this will be pretty self-explanatory and you can almost ignore it. Sort of pay attention to it, but if you don't, you'll figure it out. When you get to the space game, it starts to become different though. And of course we've just retransported these couple of Borg outside. Now we have an incoming message. Take the turbo lift to deck 2 and investigate the situation. If we're wondering where the turbo lift is that we should be using, that's actually not on that map for whatever reason. Okay, so we destroy Borg devices. Now here's where we have a kind of an interesting wrinkle to the ground game. Here's the hallway where the Borg and the Borg devices are, and this guy's another player. This is not a private instance. It's an instance, but it's a shared instance. Right now we're in kind of standard MMO control, so we can click on this and we can click our hotbar. Number 1 is your standard phaser beam setting. This just happens to be what I've started with, and 2 happens to be the stun. So I think we're not going to use the stun in this case. This guy has helpfully blown all the Borg devices up for me. So let's go down the hall a little bit, and of course you can. I think there's more in the next room actually. There are, and here's some actual Borg as well. So I can tab target between these things, and I can hit the 1 button repeatedly to keep phasering this particular guy until he dies. Okay, this is standard MMO stuff, but I can also switch to an alternate control scheme. And I do that by clicking on the B button. And that basically turns the controls into shooter controls. Whereas where now, instead of clicking 1 and 2 to activate my primary and secondary hand weapon abilities, I will click on the left and right mouse buttons. You're not really going to get the most out of this in the context of the tutorial, but it's actually quite an interesting thing, and it actually kind of makes the ground game, I think, quite a bit more fun. And you can toggle it on and off by continuing to click on the B button. You can still click on the number keys too to activate stuff, and you can click H to holster or unholster your weapon. As I am reminded, the one thing in the shooter mode is that you do kind of need to use F to, or at least it's at least most convenient to use F to interact with objects. And sometimes you will come up to an object to interact with it, and there will be another interactable object right there, so you'll have to use the arrow keys to go up and down. It's a little bit of a hassle. So for that reason, if you are not actually shooting at stuff, it's probably best to not be in shooter mode. Okay, so engineering is just ahead. Go to main engineering. Even though I like moving in the shooter mode better, personally. Ah, that's a player. And I think we're going to encounter some forward here. The target, oh, right in front of me. The targeting on the shooter mode is pretty forgiving, as I think you can see. It would be an enormous stretch to say that this turns Star Trek Online into a shooter, but it does give it a different. It does give the combat a pretty different feel, and one that I think is relatively unusual for MMOs, for Western MMOs anyway. Okay, so head down the stairs and defend against some more Borg. You'll also notice that I see we have Zod in here as well. Okay, so we go down the ramp. We actually have to get to the bottom of the ramp. Let's kill this guy first. Although none of these Borg do like a lot of damage or anything. Now you'll notice that my quest objective now says defend engineering 18 seconds. We're going to switch out shooter mode here, right up here. So what that means is that this is basically a public quest that I need to defend it for 4 more seconds, and then it will be over, and I'll get some. I think you don't get XP in the context of the tutorial, actually, only when it's over. Okay, so we talked to the commander, who I think is back here somewhere. Where is this guy? Oh, he's in the middle. I am totally disoriented. Here we go. So head east around the warp core to the transporter room. Is that on my map? For some reason, I'm like super zoomed in on that particular map. So where I'm going is the corridor, and you do have these arrows. I wouldn't necessarily assume that they always point you in the direction you want to go, but in this case, they certainly do. Okay, so now I need to talk to the 3 officers that tell me about what engineers do, what science officers do, and what tactical officers do. Let's see, here's an example of a quite weird-looking alien that you can generate with the Star Trek Online character creation system, which there's another video on if you're interested in seeing that. It is an interesting character creation system, so check that out. Also subscribe to the channel, because the channel's awesome. And now we speak to the transporter chief. And this gives me 1,500 skill points, 160 expertise points, which is something we will get into in the character development video, and a tactical officer candidate, which is a crew member. This is Tara. She is an Andorian. She's a tactical officer, and we can change. You can change her uniform once at no cost, but you can do it Starfleet Command. Now we go to the transporter pad. The tutorial is not even close to being over, by the way, which is why this is going to be one of the longer videos in the Star Trek Online series. Loading screen. Okay, now we are in space mode. There's a message coming in from one of the hospital ships. It's the USS Seacole. The USS Mackenzie, that's my ship. This is Captain Alcott of the Seacole. We have rescue operations and need help with it. Get underway. Okay, so And this will give me, again, my objectives in the quest tracker. And now we are in space mode. Alright, now the controls here are completely different. They're actually kind of like a flight simulator would be. Kind of. In order to point my ship, I can use A or D. Watch the ship itself, because this is relatively subtle when I'm not moving. In order to tilt the ship up or down, I can click on W for down and S for up. So you're still using WASD here. Alright, so I need to go to the USS Kelvin, which I can click on, and it's there. So the reason why I'm turning so slow right now is because I'm not moving. So I can engage thrusters with the E button, and you see I went to 1/4 impulse, or impulse 3.15. That kicked me up again for hitting the button a second time. And I can go to, and I can click on this to go to full impulse, but I actually don't want to do that here. You'll see why later on. It would overshoot this ship. It's too close. Okay, so we've rescued guys from the Kelvin. Here is the Oakland, which again the quest update has objective tracker has updated, and you'll see that I can move around now. And the ship will move in with a rate dependent on your impulse here, and will move in the direction that it's pointed. So this isn't exactly a flight simulator, but it isn't exactly not a flight simulator either. It's actually a relatively unique system that owes a lot to a PC game called Starfleet Command, but more so to an old board game called Starfleet Battles, which was kind of known for its monstrous complexity at the time. But which Starfleet Command is basically a PC game adaptation of. This is definitely not doesn't have as much to it as Starfleet Battles did, but it's also definitely got a lot of the same feel. But of course, they're both based on Star Trek, so they're both designed to emulate the kind of space battles we see in Star Trek movies and TV shows. So it's not surprising that that's the case. Okay, now we need to take the survivors to the USS Seacole. And of course, these are like flight simi type controls. So the button that I think is going to tilt me up, which is W, is actually tilting me down, and vice versa. It's something that I still haven't gotten 100% used to, but you do get used to it. Okay, so we're receiving a hail from the USS Renown. Meet with the USS Renown, who's on the other side of the asteroid. And again, you can pull up the map. That's where you want to go. So pretty much exactly the opposite direction from where I'm going. Not quite. There's the Renown. And of course there's going to be some Borg action here. Just like you can customize the appearance of your characters, you can customize the appearance of your ship. And you can do that at Starfleet Command as well. And you can do it once for free. Once you get to Starfleet Command, which you get sent to immediately upon departing the tutorial. Alright, so we now need to destroy damaged probes, and these will give us some know-how on how everything works, but I will show you. Okay, so we can click on this probe and engage our impulse drive by clicking the E button. Clicking the Q button disengages the impulse drive one step at a time. Okay, now, this particular ship has 3 weapon arrays. It has a forward phaser, an aft phaser, and a photon torpedo launcher. And once they become not grayed out, you can fire them by pressing the accompanying hotkey. Now, when I mouse over them, it will show me, see the firing arc. Which is not going to become incredibly relevant here. Certainly at the beginning of the game, photon torpedoes do a lot more damage than phasers do, but of course they have a longer cooldown as well, and generally narrower firing arcs. The tutorial is actually pretty instructive. It does give you all the basics of ground stuff and ship stuff. But those of you who are familiar with other MMOs will probably not be at all puzzled by the ground stuff, because it works pretty similarly in most respects to other MMOs. Alright, now, this is 16.2 kilometers away, so in an effort to cut that down, I'm going to engage full impulse, and we'll zoom right in. Now, as soon as I enter combat, I will leave full impulse. So as soon as I fire that guy, it's taken care of. Now, you'll notice that I have shields, and my opponent has shields. There goes one. And I can boost power to shields in a directional array, in a directional way. So if my forward shield is starting to go down, I can actually click the up arrow key and reroute power from that front screen to the front screen from the other shields. So it's actually kind of neat. And of course, I want enemies facing me, facing my my strongest shield. And I also want, not coincidentally at all, I also want my most powerful weapons, which in this case are my proton torpedoes. And there's a lot of different types of ships. You'll eventually get a new ship at level 10. And as you continue to play, you will continue to earn new ship slots and get new ships. Different ships have different capabilities. This is just like the basic starter ship, which pretty much is the same for all level 1 to 10 characters. At level 1 to 10, you become... at every 10 levels, you gain a quote-unquote rank. So in this case, I'm still in the tutorial. I'm still an ensign. I will become a lieutenant when I hit level 1 at the end of the tutorial. So we have an incoming message. We want to beam down to Vega Colony, so I can accept. I can choose my away team. In this case, I only have one other person. Okay, so I got some more skill points too, and which I can click on this button to skill up, but I don't even want to deal with that yet. I think the K button also pulls this screen up. This is not important right now. That is something we'll get into in the character development video. Again, I'm just showing you the tutorial right now. Character development in this game, as you continue to play, is actually quite complex. The mission structure that's available in the game is quite complex, so it's something that is beyond the scope of this particular video. Okay, so we need to talk to Ensign Bjarnes about kits, which are basically equipment. We'll call that done. Gather equipment, which means click on this crate back here. Okay, so this gives me a phaser sniper rifle Mark 1 and an engineering kit. So we'll continue. We will equip that. This is a little different from most MMOs. You click on the U key, and this will allow you to, you can right click on these things and you can equip, and that goes into the kit slot. This is my assets is basically currencies, and this is something that we'll hopefully get into in a future video as well. In this particular item, gives me mines, creates a mine barrier. Let's put that over here. This may be different because I'm playing an engineering character. So I wonder how I activate that ability. That's my question. Ah, here it is. So it's bound to a hotkey already. Okay, so enter the city and rescue colonists. There's Mr. Giant, weird-looking forehead dude. Click into shooter mode here because it's just more fun. These Borg they are aggro, but what I really want to do is rescue these colonists. So And these are not like unique objectives. So if you kill one of the Borg and somebody else kills another of the Borg, it's okay. You'll still get credit for the objective. So these are the Dracula variety of Borg, where they just like stand looming over innocent civilians, menacing them. Okay. Now I need to shut down a Borg device, which, if you see the little arrows, let me turn shooter mode on. If you see the little arrows on my mini map, those are actually arrows to objectives. Oh, look at that. So they're pretty aggroable if you run right up to them. You know what would be awesome here would be some grenades. Apparently somebody has grenades. Maybe that's a tactical officer thing. I am not getting individual XP for these guys, by the way. It doesn't really matter. When I leave the tutorial, I'm level 1. So... what's he taking damage from these turrets? Although I think probably if I would have just walked up to the thing, I wouldn't have aggroed it. This particular... oh, we have to shut down the force field. How do we do that? Go up here. And now I can go in here. Look at that. And I can kung fu them! Which unfortunately is not called Kirk Fu. Doesn't do a lot of damage though. Apparently my engineer Kirk Fu is not all that great. Now this is interesting. The hit points are actually kind of interesting. The top bar is actually not hit points. The top bar is my shields. The bottom bar is actually my hit points. Or my actual health. Click on that guy. Okay, so to transport to my ship, normally I would hit a button on the screen, which I would have shown you, but in this case it's done for me. There's an incoming transmission from Admiral Quinn, blah blah blah. There's Admiral Quinn, who appears to be a Trill. Warp to the Federation rally point. Now all these warping to different points within the tutorial are all kind of automated within the process of the tutorial itself. But once you actually get out into the game, then you will need to actually like navigate to places, which there'll be a video on that too. Head to any navigation beacon. Okay, where's their navigation beacon? There's a hotkey for full impulse too, by the way. And these are again shared impulses. There was a port. That's a port cube transporting in. And again, I will drop out a full impulse the instant that I start firing or am fired upon. Of course, it's useful, just as it's useful to try and keep an enemy's weak shield between he and I. and my strong shield between he and I. It is also useful to try and overlap my weapon arcs as much as possible. I don't think I recall ever actually getting loot in these things before. Oh, look at that.
We are the bulwark. Our cultural and technological existence is futile.
Awfully nice later on when you get a bigger ship and you have access to more weapon slots. There goes the word Q. And you can see my aft shield actually took a hit down there. You can see that it's weak. But you can also see I can click on the down button to boost that shield at the expense of other shields. And they'll, of course, regenerate over time on their own. So now we return to the Sol system and meet Admiral Quinn in her space dock. In order to do that. So now I'm level 1. And I am now a Lieutenant. Lieutenant 1 means I'm level 1. So if I was a Lieutenant Commander 1, it would mean that I would be level 11. If I was a Commander 1, it would mean that I was level 21, so on and so forth. And like I said, every 10 levels you get an extra rank. And then the level itself within that rank is called your grade. Requirements for next grade: gain 3,000 skill points, which we'll get to in a moment. Because I will show you the basics of leveling up once we get to Earth Space Dock, which is liable to be in the next video. Again, loading screen. This is loading me into the actual game instance as opposed to the tutorial instance.
Excellent work.
Yeah.
I will return to my duties now.
So the ship that you are on during the course of the tutorial is the ship that you are given command of now. You can go through these manually if you want, but I'm going to now dismiss them. You have to be a certain distance away from Earth Space Dock to actually dock at it. Once you are sufficiently close, you'll get this dock button, so you can dock the station. And then once you've docked at the station, you'll be able to actually beam down to Earth, which is Starfleet Academy, which is an outdoor zone. You're gonna walk around down there. There's submissions down there, that kind of thing. So we'll take a quick look at Earth Space Dock, which is kind of the culmination of your tutorial experience in Star Trek Online. And all of the basic things that you would want, all the basic MMO services that you would want, including new missions and your abilities to customize your ships and your crew and all that business, are all here in Earth Space Dock. We don't actually need that little video. Okay, so here we are. We'll show you the map real quick. I think this guy will do something if I talk to him. This is Earth Space Dock. The Admiral's office is right here. Your current mission objective, once you're out of the tutorial, will be to go talk to the Admiral. So head this way. You, of course, are right here. So he's right around the corner. So that is the Star Trek Online tutorial. I appreciate your patience through this rather lengthy video, and I hope you have enjoyed it, and I hope that it has been vaguely instructive. So, down in the notes below, you will find a link to my website at ardwulf.wordpress.com, plus links to my feeds on Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. So check those out. Subscribe to the channel. We have more videos coming on both Star Trek Online and other games, and there are many other tempting videos already in the channel, so check those out as well. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.